Have you ever tried a new restaurant and you had high expectations, and then when you started eating your food, you realized that the reputation was a lot better than your experience was going to be? You know, we encounter a church today in the book of Revelation, the church at Sardis. And Jesus said this is a church that had a great reputation, but the truth was that they were actually dead. That deadness came from the fact that they were corrupted, contaminated by sinfulness. So let's look at what Jesus said. I know all the things you do, that you have a reputation for being alive, but you are dead. Wake up. Strengthen what little remains, for even what is left is almost dead. I find that your actions do not meet the requirements of my God. Sardis teaches us up close and personal that we cannot be casual about our sin. We can't be clueless about our sin. We need to know where we stand with God at all times. We need to take the state of our spiritual hearts, of our spiritual minds, very seriously. Jesus said to this church, you're almost dead and you don't know it. He also said, you're not living up to the requirements of my God. What a sobering statement to believers, to people who follow Jesus Christ. It was very sobering to the Christians at Sardis because that city had a reputation and a history for a few things that shed light on what Jesus is saying here. Firstly, there was a necropolis outside of the town of Sardis, about 7 miles. A necropolis is a giant graveyard. This one had hundreds of mounds, and Sardis was known for this necropolis. So Sardis was known for death, and sadly, so was the church at Sardis. They also were known for death. We don't want to go there, and we don't want to be there. We have to understand that Jesus is so serious about sin. We touched on it a bit last week. We need to realize that even though Jesus is merciful and patient with us, He does not make excuse for our personal holiness. He wants us to become like Him, and He has no desire to become like us. We must always remember that. Jesus said to the Christians at Sardis, if you don't wake up, I will come to you suddenly, as unexpected as a thief. We may get complacent, but Jesus will never get complacent. He promised to make us holy. He promised to present us to God, holy and acceptable, without a single fault. And He will do exactly as He said He would do, because He's always done exactly what He said He would do. So what can we do? We can be vigilant about sin in our lives. Something that's interesting in the history of the city of Sardis in Asia was that because of its advantageous military position, it was never taken by a frontal attack. It was taken twice by stealth. The enemy came in unaware and then took the city. And that's kind of how sin works in our lives. Sin is creepy. And I don't just mean it's awful to look at and it makes you feel bad. Sin creeps into our life, a little here, a little there. We surrender to certain behaviors or activities or habits, and those habits begin to create bondage in our life, and one day we wake up and we can't get out of them. Or in the case of the Christians at Sardis, you wake up dead. You wake up and your spiritual life has slipped away, and you stand there with Jesus looking over you going, wake up, trying to shake you out of your stupor, because Jesus is serious about sin. We need to realize that the battle for sin is worth it. And conversely, we need to realize that the battle for righteousness is worth it. That Jesus wants us to be like Him. That's what He saved us to be. That's why He paid such a dear price on the cross. Not so that we could live miserable, defeated lives. Not so that we could live a sinful life and then slide into heaven by the skin of our teeth, to borrow the old expression. But so that we could live a victorious life. So that we could live as overcomers and overcome the sin in our lives. And display for the world a righteousness and a hope and a new way of life. In fact, a way of freedom. And so the battle against sin is worth it because it is also a battle for righteousness. And Jesus wants you to be righteous and holy just like He is. There are some in Sardis who have not soiled their clothes with evil. They will walk with me in white, for they are worthy. All who are victorious will be clothed in white. I will never erase their names from the book of life. And I will announce before my Father and His angels that they are mine. Again, Jesus died to make you victorious. He died so that one day you could stand with Him in gleaming white, sinless and perfect in the presence of an amazing and awesome God. That's what you've been saved for. That's what Jesus wants to do with you. And the great thing about Jesus, as He introduced Himself to the church at Sardis, He said that He was the one with the sevenfold Spirit. That means that in Jesus is the power to do this. I know that sin can be overwhelming. I know there are habits in our lives that can be there for years and we can feel as though we can never win. But that is a lie. It is not true. The truth is that Jesus is in you, and He is the sevenfold Spirit of God, and He will empower you to do amazing things, far above anything you could ever ask, think, or dare to dream. So it's exciting to be a child of God. We have so much to look forward to, but we must remember, we're looking forward to righteousness and holiness and perfection. We're not looking forward to just being cleaned off because we have failed in life. Jesus will make us champions. That's who we are ordained to be.